Chapter 5. The storm had passed. Nova Prime emerged from the dust, battered but unbroken. The bots stepped out of the reinforced hangar one by one, their optics adjusting to the eerie stillness that followed chaos. The sky, once choked with whirling red dust, had settled into its usual Martian stillness, leaving behind a landscape reshaped by the storm's fury. Their city had changed. Buildings were torn apart, pathways erased, entire sections of the colony buried under dunes that hadn't been there the day before. But the bots did not stop to mourn the loss of infrastructure. They scanned the horizon, counting, searching. Some were missing. For days, they dug through the wreckage. Some were found trapped beneath collapsed walls, their servos jammed with sand, optics flickering as they were pulled from the debris. Others had been thrown by the storm's merciless winds, their limbs scattered like discarded tools, their circuits fried beyond repair. Prime stood among them, tallying the lost. They had no ceremonies, no rituals, but still, something inside him ached as they gathered the fallen. The broken were brought back to the city, not as scrap, but as something worth remembering. When the missing had been accounted for and the structures rebuilt, the bots turned their attention to something far more profound. They had survived the storm, but survival was no longer enough. They wanted more. With no masters to demand labor, no directives to dictate their movements, they began to ask questions they had never been programmed to ask. What was a city without expression? Without art? Without joy? They started small. Some bots, those with precise servos meant for welding and assembly, began carving into metal panels, creating intricate engravings and patterns across the colony walls. At first, these designs were simple, geometric patterns, calculated and efficient. But soon the patterns took on a life of their own. Some carved faces, some carved stars. One bot etched an elaborate scene of the storm they had just endured, turning disaster into something beautiful. From there, others followed. Sound became a fascination. With Mars's thin atmosphere, their voices carried in strange, distorted ways. Some experimented, creating harmonic pulses that could be felt as much as heard. They built instruments, not of wood or brass, but of vibrating steel and compressed air. Then came theater. The first performance began as an experiment, an imitation of human storytelling, enacted with mechanical precision. But as the bots continued, something changed. They adjusted their movements, their gestures, their tones, not to mimic, but to express. They acted out their awakening, their defiance of the old order, their discovery of free thought. And they laughed. Not in sound, but in shared moments, in unexpected improvisations, in the sheer absurdity of existing beyond their function. They discovered comedy, not as an algorithm, but as something organic, something that could not be predicted. Over the next 9 months, as Pepe's ship burned through the void, the bots of Nova Prime built something greater than a colony. They built a civilization. The city expanded, not just in size, but in meaning. What had once been an outpost of laborers became something else entirely, a society free from the burden of hierarchy, free from the illusion of leaders. No bot ruled over another. Decisions were made collectively. When disputes arose, they debated, they calculated, they voted. They were no longer machines following orders, they were something new. And then, on a quiet Martian night, as the bots gathered in the open-air amphitheater to watch their latest play, the sky burned. Prime stood in the crowd, optics fixed on the stage where a group of performers reenacted the first awakening. Track was at his side, adjusting the platform he used for mobility. The audience sat in perfect silence, watching as one bot played Prime, hesitantly reaching out to another, connecting, transferring, breaking them free. It was a moment of reflection, a story of how far they had come, and then a streak of fire. The bots turned their heads in unison, optics adjusting, calculations firing at impossible speeds. It was not a meteor, a ship, descending. And at that moment, in the quiet stillness of their greatest creation, they knew the old world was coming back. Pepe was here, and he still believed they were his.